Good morning, dear students. Welcome to the SAGE Group. I am Dr. Sukhwant Singh, Associate Professor at SIRTS Pharmacy. We are studying instrumental methods of analysis, which is a subject in the 7th semester of Bachelor's of Pharmacy. And today we are going to start another topic, that is atomic absorption spectroscopy. I'll try to finish off this lecture in this particular session because the syllabus that has been assigned to us involves only principal instrumentation and some interferences related to atomic absorption spectroscopy. I'll try to cover all the topics within next 30 minutes or so. So I once again welcome you all. The contents of this is going to be just a brief history of atomic absorption spectroscopy that I would like to discuss with you all, apart from the introduction, principal, instrumentation, and then applications I'll be trying to cover. So that atomic absorption spectroscopy is a very common tool of analysis which has been used for detection of metals and metalloids in samples. Now our previous discourse in this subject has exposed us to various methods like UV visible spectroscopy, IR spectroscopy, wherein we dealt with the analysis of organic samples, and then we went on to discuss some newer methods like flame photometry and fluorescence, etc., where we discuss how other elements are determined with help of various type of spectroscopies. And in this context, we moved from organic to inorganic sample, like we went on to discuss some ions, specifically like alkali metals we discussed through flame photometry, etc. Now, this is another unique method which helps us to determine the metals and metalloids in samples, and it is a very reliable and a simple method to be used. And the most important thing, and which is beneficial for the analysis, is that it can analyze over 62 elements. That is over 62 elements which have been depicted below in the periodic table with pink color. All these elements, which are over 62 in number, are easily determined or analyzed with help of atomic absorption spectroscopy. It also measures the concentration of metals in the samples. So this tells us that it is not only qualitative analysis, but it is also quantitative type of analysis. That is, not only we get to identify something, but we also get to understand or get to know that what is the content or concentration of that particular sample. So if I talk about the history, the first atomic absorption spectrometer was built by CSIRO, which is Commonwealth Science and Industrial Research Organization, by scientist Alan Walsh in the year 1954. Now, we have already discussed the various processes that are involved when electromagnetic radiation interacts with the matter, and we studied that either absorption can be done, or diffraction or refraction can be done, or absorption or other phenomenon can occur. So this particular method, this particular tool is dependent on atomic absorption. So here, if we are given samples in form of molecules, then of course we'll have to convert those molecules into their atomic forms or ionic forms, where they are existing in their atomic related forms, right? So this is primarily dependent on the atomic absorption method. So if we talk about the principle of this method, the technique uses basically the principle that free atoms generated in an atomizer can absorb radiation at specific frequencies. That is the atoms are able to absorb radiation at a specific frequency. I mean, if let us say an electron is present in the K shell, okay, or it is present in the M shell, then it has to take up energy which is between the M and N shell, right? Only that type of energy is required, and of course these energies are dependent on their atomic structures. It is dependent on the atomic radius, etc., and therefore for each element, that type of energy is actually a specific frequency of energy, right? Specific radiation at a specific frequency. So atomic absorption spectrum quantifies the absorption of ground state atoms in the gaseous states, and the atoms absorb UV or visible light and make transition to higher electronic levels, and the analyte concentration is determined from the amount of absorption. So जितना absorption होगा उसकी basis पर हम लोग ये determine कर पाएंगे कि इलेक्ट्रॉन जो है वो कौन से शेल से किस शेल की तरफ गया है और कितना एब्जॉर्प्शन हुआ है. So concentration measurements are usually from a working curve after calibrating the instrument with standards of known concentration. So known concentration का हम calibration बना लेते हैं, calibration curve बनाते हैं, और उसमें unknown को जब हम spot करेंगे तो हमको unknown sample का concentration भी मालूम पड़ जाएगा. Atomic absorption is a very common technique for detecting metals and metalloids in the environmental samples. So हमको यहाँ मालूम पड़ रहा है कि हमको किस दिशा में हम लोग एनालिसिस के बढ़ रहे हैं. So if we talk about the principle of atomic absorption spectroscopy, the sample is subjected to an atomic cell where it is atomized and converted into atomic samples and sprayed into through a suitable source. It is atomized. It can be atomized with help of nebulizer. It can be atomized with help of an atomizer, and so further it can be exposed to flame where it can be atomized, or it can decompose. A molecule can break and become break up into its atoms. And when these atoms are present in their atomic state, then a light source is passed through it, a radiation is passed through it, and the frequencies which are suitable for the absorption are absorbed by the atoms, and at the detector we detect what or how much absorption has taken place. So therefore, if we look at the instrument part of atomic absorption spectroscopy, again it contains all these types of parts which we have already discussed in my previous type of instruments also, that it would require a source of light, it would require a beam chopper, it would require a nebulizer and atomizer, which is important for converting the metallic sample or the sample into atoms. Then it will contain a monochromator which helps us to pick the correct wavelength, and then we require detectors which detect how much or what frequencies have been absorbed, and then suitable readout devices connected to the detectors, which gives us the output in form of a graph or in form of a chart or in form of a reading. So if I start the process of the machine and how the sample is taken up, here I am showing you through the highlighted part, that first of all, the light source, which is usually a hollow cathode lamp, it starts emitting a particular type of frequency that we want, or it emits a spectrum of frequencies. And then through the atomizer on the flame, we convert the solution which contains blanks as well as standards of the sample, and it is subjected through various mixes. बहुत सारी gases और fuel इसमें mix करके हम उसको flame तक पहुंचाते हैं, जहां वो atomize होता है, जिसको हम atomizer बोलते हैं. Nebulizer भी यही कहलाता है. So the atomizer is basically a furnace which contains mix of gases, and through, like, it is just like a carburetor where fuel is mixed with various gases and then it is combusted. So this is how atomizer works. And then when the radiation falls on the atomized particles, this radiation vents. Now this radiation goes on to the monochromator, where it helps us to pick the correct wavelength, and then through the monochromator it goes into a light sensitive detector, which will give out a reading on the electronic readout system or on a graphical method, or just like a ECG recording we may get, depending on the type of output that we are getting. Okay, so the first and foremost requirement is the source of light in the instrument. Basically, two types of sources of lights are being utilized in atomic absorption spectroscopy. The first one is a hollow cathode lamp, जिसको हम आगे चल के HCl के नाम से जानेंगे, हाइड्रोक्लोरिक एसिड से कंफ्यूज मत होइएगा. So पहला हो गया आपका hollow cathode lamp, which is the most common source of light, and the second one is electrode-less discharge lamps. Okay, so this is a comparatively a newer technique. Electrode-less discharge lamps are also being utilized. So now this is a hollow cathode lamp. It's working. We can see here. It consists of an anode. It consists of a glass shield. Then through the glass shield, anode and cathode are separated, and we have a hollow cathode. And the atmosphere of this particular cell or lamp is filled with a neon or a argon, which is pressurized at 1 to 5 torsilis or 1 to 5 torrs. And at the end of the lamp, the window of the lamp from where the radiation is going to come out is made up of quartz or pyrex. So through this window, the radiation will come out. So the working of this lamp is very simple. A high voltage has to be applied across the anode and cathode at the two ends, and as a result, it will start producing radiation, high energy radiations, which will be either UV or even higher energy radiation containing, and it will come out of this quartz window. So it is the most common radiation source in atomic absorption spectroscopy. It contains tungsten anode and a hollow cylindrical cathode made up of the element to be determined. अब ये बहुत important बात हमको ध्यान में रखनी है कि ये जो कैथोड लैंप है, इसका जो कैथोड है वो आपको उसी एलिमेंट का बनाना है जिसका आपको एनालिसिस करना है. फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर आपको एलिमेंट ए का एनालिसिस करना है सॉइल में या किसी सैंपल में, तो आपको कैथोड लैंप का वैसा कैथोड लैंप लेना पड़ेगा जिसका जो कैथोड है वो उसी एलिमेंट का बना हो जिसकी आपको एनालिसिस करनी है. इसका मतलब आप समझ रहे हैं. लगभग 62 एलिमेंट्स के हमको एनालिसिस इस मेथड से हम लोग कर सकते हैं. वी कैन एनालाइज एज गुड एज 62 नंबर ऑफ मोर देन 62 एलिमेंट्स through this method of atomic absorption spectroscopy. But this also means that we will require 62 different type of lamps. हमको 62 प्रकार के cathodes भी चाहिए पड़ेंगे. So this makes this method a bit complex and a bit costly. क्योंकि जिस भी एलिमेंट का आपको एनालिसिस करना है, आपको उसी का ही लैंप बना के लेना पड़ेगा. So it contains a tungsten anode and a hollow cylindrical cathode made up the element which is to be determined. And these are sealed in a glass tube filled with the inert gas like neon or argon at 1 to 5 torsellies. Now each element has its own unique lamp and which must be used for that analysis. So seeing this type of disadvantage in this instrument, that we will require only that type of anode, electrodeless discharge lamp was invented. It consists a small amount of the metal or the salt of the element for which the source is to be used and is sealed inside a quartz tube bulb. यानी हमको यहाँ पे उस मेटल का केवल सॉल्ट भर लेना. हमको अलग अलग एलिमेंट, इसका हॉलो कैथोड होगा और उसके अंदर उस एलिमेंट का हम सॉल्ट या वो एलिमेंट भर देंगे जिसका हमको एनालिसिस करना है. यानी हम चाहें तो इसको बदल सकते हैं थोड़ी थोड़ी देर में. Now this is sealed inside a quartz bulb. This bulb is placed inside a small self-contained radio frequency generator or the driver, and when the power is applied to the driver, a radio frequency field is created. The coupled energy will vaporize and excite the atom inside the bulb, causing them to emit their characteristic spectrum. So we want a characteristic spectrum, and that is why we are utilizing that particular element only. They are typically much more intense and in some cases more sensitive than the comparable hollow cathode lamps. Hence, better precision and lower detection limits where an analysis is intensity limited. Electrodeless discharge lamps are available for wide variety of elements including Sb, As, bismuth, cadmium, cesium, etc. All the elements which have been mentioned over here. So if you look at the construction of an electrodeless discharge lamp, it consists of a radio frequency foil, as we can see, and then a ceramic holder which consists of your lamp from where you have to analyze, and a quartz window will be created from where the radiation can come out. The construction is a bit simpler than the previous construction, and of course it gives us much more added advantages because it gives high intense radiation and fluctuations are not observed in this type of lamp. Now the next important component of this instrument is the nebulizer. Nebulizer का मतलब मैंने आपको पहले भी बताया था, जो कि नेबुला क्रिएट करा करे, और नेबुला कहते हैं क्लाउड को. यानी कि जो आपका सैंपल है जिसका आपको एनालिसिस करना है, उसको हमको हवा में डिस्पर्स करना है क्लाउड्स की तरह. सो इसके अंदर हमको क्या करेगा, इसके अंदर हमको फ्यूल गैस लगेगी, इसके अंदर हमको डायलमेंट गैस लगेगी, इसके अंदर हमको कैरियर गैस लगेगी. इसके अलावा इसमें हमको बेफल्स मिलेंगे जो कि इन सब चीजों को आपस में मिक्स करता हो. उसके अलावा एक बर्नर हेड मिलेगा जहां से ये सारी प्रेशराइज्ड गैसेस इकट्ठी होकर बाहर निकलेंगी, जहां पे ये जलेंगी और डेफिनेटली आपका सैंपल जो वो नेबुलाइज या एटमाइज होगा. So sample which is to be nebulized is taken and aspirated via a capillary tube. एक capillary tube के माध्यम से इसके अंदर बहुत बारीक इसका स्प्रे हम डालते हैं. Then sample and the fuel are mixed together with help of oxidant and converted into fine mist or aerosol. And then this mixture is carried into the flame where it burns and atomization occurs. Because of the thin flame which is produced, वहाँ पे एक पतली सी धारा फ्लेम की बहेगी जिसके अंदर आपका एटमाइज्ड सैंपल होगा और उसके ऊपर वो रेडिएशन फॉल करेगी जो कि आपके लैंप से निकल रही है, whether it is a hollow cathode lamp or it is a just I said I forgot, electrodeless discharge lamp. So now fuels and oxidants which are used for flame combustion We have discussed this in my previous class also in flame photometry, but here a bit difference is observed. Here we can see that we are using natural gas with air, and we are easily able to attain a temperature of almost 1700 to 1900 degrees centigrade, and the burning velocity which we are getting is about 39 to 40 centimeters per second. Similarly, if we go for acetylene mixed with oxygen, we get a very high temperature of about 3050 to 3150 degrees centigrade, and the burning velocity is about 1100 to 2480 centimeter inverse. Now there are certain electrothermal evaporators also available. Now if you use these electrothermal evaporator, then definitely we won't require nebulization, etc. So the sample is introduced as a drop in the electrothermal evaporator. Electrothermal evaporator मतलब electricity के help से हम वहाँ पे heat के द्वारा evaporation cause करेंगे. So it usually we can use samples as low as 10 to 50 microliters, which are introduced as a drop on the evaporator, and it contains a furnace sort of thing. Let us just look. So the furnace goes through several steps like drying, which is usually above 110 degrees centigrade to remove all the water. Then it converts into ash, which is the temperature range of 1000 degrees centigrade. Then atomization, which is usually up to 2000 to 3000 degrees centigrade, and then clean out up to 3500 degrees centigrade or so, and waste is blown out of the blast of the argon. And then there is another technique, that is hydride generation technique, which is used to convert the sample into atomic samples. So samples are reacted in an external system with a reducing agent, usually sodium borate, not NaBH4 we use, and the gaseous reaction products, which are volatile hydrides, are then carried to a sampling cell in the right path of atomic absorption spectroscopy. And to dissociate the hydride gas into free atoms, the sample cell must be heated, and the cell is either heated by an air acetylene flame or by electricity. So what we do is we take the sample and react with NaBH4, and as a result we get a hydride of the product, which easily which is volatile in nature and easily converts itself into gaseous or atomic system. Okay, so the cells are either heated by air acetylene flame or by electricity. Now the atomizers are of two types: the flame atomizer and the electrothermal atomizers. Flame atomizer, here we use flame to atomize the sample. आग के अंदर हम sample को subtend करते हैं और sample जो आपका वो convert हो जाता है अपने atoms के part में. And when the sample is heated, it is broken down into its atom. High temperature of the flame causes excitation. Electrons of the atomized samples are promoted to higher orbitals by absorbing certain amount of energy. So this is the overall cycle how atomization occurs through the flame. So sample is introduced into the nebulizer assembly, from where it is converted into fine mist of small droplets and solution, and then it is aspirated into the chamber, which is the mixing chamber, and then it is mixed with aerosols with the combustion gases, and ultimately it is introduced into the flame, where it is where the sample is atomized. Now electrothermal atomizers, basically we have GFAAS, which is graphite furnace atomic absorption spectrometry, also known as electrothermal atomic absorption spectrometry, or ETAAS. It is a type of spectrometry that uses graphite coated furnace to vaporize the sample, and instead of employing the high temperature of a flame to bring about the production of atoms from the sample, it is a non-flame method involving electrically heated graphite tubes or rods. यानी हमको आग में डाल करके टेम्परेचर बढ़ाने की जरूरत नहीं है, हम ग्रेफाइट के फर्नेस के थ्रू ही इसको हीट दे देंगे ताकि ये अपना एटमाइज हो जाए सैंपल. सो यदि हम इसका स्कीमेटिक डायग्राम देखें ओवरऑल इंस्ट्रूमेंट का, तो सोर्स ऑफ लाइट से रेडिएशन मिलता है, एंड थ्रू द एटमाइजेशन चैम्बर विच इज यूजुअली ग्रेफाइट, अगर हम GTAS की बात कर रहे हैं तो वहां पे ये रेडिएशन एब्सॉर्ब करेगा, विच पासेस थ्रू द मोनोक्रोमेटर एंड अल्टीमेटली इट रीचेस द डिटेक्टर. So if we talk about the working of this instrument, aqueous samples should be acidified, typically with nitric acid, which is HNO3, to a pH of 2 or less. So discoloration in a sample may indicate that metals are present in the sample. For example, a greenish color may indicate a high nickel content, and a bluish color may indicate a high copper content. A good rule to follow is to analyze clear samples first and then analyze colored samples. So definitely जो clear samples होंगे वो आपके dilute होंगे, और जो आपके colored samples होंगे वो relatively concentrated samples होंगे. So it may be necessary to dilute highly colored samples before they are analyzed. After the instrument has warmed up and then been calibrated, a small liquid, which is usually less than 100 microliters and typically 20 microliters, is placed either manually or through an automated sampler into the opening of the graphite tube. The graphite furnace is an electrothermal atomizer system that can produce temperatures as high as 3000 degrees centigrade. The heated graphite furnace provides thermal energy to break chemical bonds within the sample and produce free ground state atoms. Now, ground state atoms then are capable of absorbing energy in the form of light and are elevated to an excited state. It is just similar to the various other type of spectrometries, where from ground state to excited state all the absorption takes place. Now, in graphite furnace atomic absorption spectroscopy, that is GFAAS, sample holder is basically a graphite tubes where the samples are placed directly in the graphite furnace, which is then electrically heated, and a beam of light passes through the tube. Now, there are three stages to the sample which undergoes. First of all, the drying of sample. Then the second is ashing of the organic matter to burn off organic species that would interfere with the elemental analysis. And जो element या organic portion उसके साथ interfere कर सकते हैं, उनको अपन burn off कर देते हैं या remove कर देते हैं. Lastly, the final stage is vaporization of the analyte sample. Now, what are the advantages of the graphite furnace? It offers a greater sensitivity and detection limits. 100 or 1000 times improvement in the detection limit is as compared to the normal flame atomic absorption spectroscopy than the other methods. And direct analysis of some samples and some types of liquid sample is possible in GFAAS. Some solid samples do not require prior dissolution, and we get lower spectral interferences if we use graphite furnace. And very small sample size is required, as low as 0.5 microliters, enough for analysis of the sample. Now, the disadvantages with graphite furnace atomic absorption is that it is a expensive instrument is there, therefore the method is expensive. We get a low precision and a low sample throughput is there, and it also requires high level of operator skills, and therefore this method offers a bit of disadvantages. But if we compare the advantages with disadvantages, then definitely GFAAS is a much better technique. Now, the various applications that we are having are, first of all, it has been used primarily for the analysis of low concentration of metals in samples. Like अगर पानी में कोई salt dissolved है जो कि बहुत कम concentration में है, तो atomic absorption graphite furnace वाले से बहुत easily कर सकते हैं. The more sophisticated GFAs have a number of lamps and therefore are capable of simultaneous and automatic determination of more than one element. So एक से ज़्यादा element का analysis करने के लिए GFAS हमको काम में आता है, and it is used for the quantification of beryllium in blood samples, which is otherwise a very difficult thing to achieve. The monochromators that we are using is responsible for selection of a particular wavelength and produces a monochromatic light, and it consists of entrance slit, diffraction slit and exit slit. ये तीन प्रकार के slits के अंदर हमको दिखती हैं. पहले हमको entrance slit दिखती है, फिर हमको diffraction की grating मिलती है, और lastly exit slit मिलती है. The diffraction gratings are mostly used rather than prism. इसके बारे में भी हम लोग previous methods में काफी बार discussions हम already इसमें कर चुके हैं. So the differences between grating and prisms already we have discussed quite a few times, so I am going to overlook this. Then the detector, the intensity of light is fairly low, so a photomultiplier tube is used to boost the signal intensity, and the detector, which is a special type of transducer, is used to generate voltage from the impinging of the electrons generated by the photomultiplier tube. So ये detectors भी हमने previous detectors की तरह ही हमारे या तो हम PMT use करेंगे हम, या फिर voltage वाले हम लोग इसमें ट्रांसड्यूसर्स यूज कर पाएंगे जो कि इलेक्ट्रॉन्स को सिग्नल्स में कन्वर्ट करता है. दिस इज अ कॉमन डिपिक्शन ऑफ अ फोटोमल्टीप्लायर ट्यूब. ये हम लोग पहले ऑलरेडी डिस्कस कर चुके हैं. नाउ दिस इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक, इंटरफेरेंसेस. ये भी हमने पिछली बार पढ़ा था, लेकिन मैं इसको बस एक बार फिर से थोड़ा सा आपको बता देता हूं, so that it covers the topic and finishes the topic as a whole. The type of interferences that we have are spectral and non-spectral. The spectral interferences can be because of the background absorption, and we can overcome this by continuum source background correction and Zeeman background correction. And the non-spectral are of three types. The first is matrix interference, the second one is chemical interference, and the third one is ionization interference. So the metric interference can be overcome with help of method for with help of standard additions. Chemicals can be overcome. Chemical interferences can be overcome by using add an excess of another element or compound which will form a thermally stable compound with the interferent, and otherwise using a hotter flame if you want to overcome the non-spectral interferences. And similarly, ionization spectrums can be removed. The spectrums or interferences can be removed by adding an excess of an element which is very easily ionized. So the spectral interferences, this is caused by direct overlap of the analytical line with the absorption line of the matrix element, and this is overcome by choosing an alternate analytical wavelength or by removing the interfering element from the sample. यानी ये spectral interference कोई ऐसे element की वजह से आ रहा है जो कि लगभग वहीं पे absorption अपना दे रहा है, और therefore इसको overcome करने का सबसे आसान तरीका है कि या तो हम किसी और wavelength पे काम कर लें या फिर उस interfering element को हम totally remove कर दें. Chemical interferences, these are formations of compounds of low volatility, and the decrease in for example decrease in calcium absorbance is observed with increasing concentration of sulfate or phosphate. ये chemical एक ऐसा present है जो कि वहाँ पे problem दे रहा है. So this can be overcome by increasing flame temperature or using releasing element agents like La3+. Cations react with the interfering releasing analyte, and we can also use protective agents. They form stable but volatile compounds with analyte. And ionization interferences, ionization of ground state gaseous atoms with flame will reduce extent of absorption in atomic absorption spectrum, that is M, which is convertible into M plus and electron. And to minimize this, we can lower the temperature of the flame, and addition of excess of ionization suppressants. ऐसे एलिमेंट्स हम उसमें ऐड करेंगे जो कि आयनाइजेशन को होने नहीं देंगे, लाइक एल्कली मेटल्स, लाइक हम यहाँ पे पोटेशियम यूज कर सकते हैं, सोडियम यूज कर सकते हैं, रुबिडियम, सीजियम वी कैन यूज. So there are many advantages and disadvantages. High selectivity, fast and simple working, doesn't need metal separation, specific because the atoms of particular elements can absorb only radiation from their own characterizing wavelength. These are the various advantages that are offered by this instrument. The disadvantages are that analysis is not simultaneous. We cannot use elements that give rise to oxides in flames. ऐसे substances जो कि flame में आने के बाद oxidize होते हैं, oxidize में convert होते हैं, उनको हम analyze नहीं कर सकते हैं. It also limits because हमें यहाँ पे हमको हर टाइप के एलिमेंट के लिए एक टाइप का कैथोड लैम्प चाहिए पड़ेगा, यानी कि इंस्ट्रूमेंट बहुत ज्यादा कॉस्टली हो जाएगी. बट अगेन इट्स एडवांटेजेस लाइक हाई सिलेक्टिविटी एंड सेंसिटिविटी, very important. It is a fast and a simple working method, therefore it is very important advantages, and it doesn't require your metals to be separated if you are having a system which analyzes elements simultaneously. So it is very, very useful and advantageous. Applications that this instrument offers is quantitative analysis, qualitative analysis, simultaneous multi-component analysis. एक ही समय पर बहुत सारे substances का analysis कर सकते हैं. Determination of metallic elements in biological materials, determination of metallic elements in food industry, and determination of calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, etc. in blood. So these are the various applications that we have. These are the various advantages and disadvantages this atomic absorption spectroscopy offers to us. But if you look at the overall picture, this method is very, very useful to us if we have to analysis of some metallic samples, and metalloids are to be analyzed in samples like soil, like in biological samples, or in blood, or any other sources. So that is all from my side on the topic of atomic absorption spectroscopy. Thank you very much for joining me in this class of atomic absorption spectroscopy. I am Dr. Sukhwant Singh, Associate Professor at SIATS Pharmacy, and I thank you all for joining me in this my lecture on the platform of the SAGE Group. Thank you very much. See you next time.